There are moments in the world of martial arts that feel less like sporting events and more like living legends unfolding in real time. These are the stories that echo through dojos for decades, whisper between students as they wrap their hands before training, retold with reverence by instructors who were lucky enough to witness them. The day Jim Kelly and Joe Lewis crossed paths inside a packed gymnasium belonged to that category of unforgettable moments. Even before any punch was thrown or any stance assumed, there was a unique tension in the air, an electricity that hinted something extraordinary was about to happen. The gym itself looked as though it had been swallowed by the sheer number of spectators inside it. Every seat on the bleachers was filled, and the overflow crowd lined the walls 3 rows deep. Families pressed tightly together, shoulders brushing, their conversations drowned beneath the constant swell of applause and murmurs. Children sat bouncing in their parents' laps, wide-eyed and eager, sensing excitement even if they didn't fully understand its source. Teenagers leaned over the rails with buzzing anticipation, hoping to record something worth bragging about later. Local reporters stood poised like hawks, notebooks open, cameras ready, waiting for the first flicker of an event that would make the next day's headline screen. Among these countless faces sat 2 names that towered over American martial arts culture: Jim Kelly and Joe Lewis. Their presence alone elevated the atmosphere, transforming the competition into something mythic. Jim Kelly, unmistakable with his controlled intensity and iconic posture, radiated the kind of leadership forged through years of discipline, sweat, and teaching. His legacy wasn't built on fame, but on care, a dedication to molding students not only into fighters, but into strong, principled individuals. He taught them precision, integrity, and heart, qualities he expected them to carry both inside and outside the dojo. But on this particular day, his heart was troubled. His students, the embodiment of his teachings, were struggling. They were locked in a fierce contest against the fighters trained at the Prada School of Martial Arts, and every moment felt like a test not only of their skills, but Jim's reputation and the future of his school. Yet the crowd didn't know the full stakes. They saw only young fighters competing in good spirit, unaware of the wager that hung invisibly over every point scored. Jim had made a promise months before, a playful bet turned serious, and now the future of his advanced program and the pride of his entire school rested delicately on these matches. Across the room, half hidden among the sea of spectators, stood Joe Lewis. To many, Joe was already a legend, a figure whose reputation stretched across the nation like a banner of excellence. His presence was imposing, but his demeanor today was unassuming, quiet, reflective. Though he watched in the shadows, his interest wasn't that of a casual observer. He witnessed each round with focus that suggested he saw far more than the crowd did, enough to recognize the emotional storm building within his friend. On the competition floor, the tension reached its breaking point as the scoreboard crept dangerously toward defeat for Jim's students. Every misstep felt like a blow to Jim's chest. Every point lost like a crack in the foundation he had spent years building. His students weren't just competitors. They were extensions of his own effort and passion, and watching them struggle ignited a heavy frustration he could barely contain. His jaw tightened, his arms crossed protectively over his chest, and his breath grew thick with pressure. The entire atmosphere shifted with a weight that everyone felt but could not yet understand. It didn't matter whether you were a parent, a child, a reporter, or a seasoned martial artist. You sensed instinctively that this gathering had stopped being just another local competition. The air vibrated with expectancy, with that rare prelude to something meaningful, something larger than the scoreboard, larger than the rival schools, larger even than the 2 martial arts icons watching from opposite sides of gym. What no one realized, what no one could have guessed, was that they were standing on the cusp of a story that would be retold for years. They were about to witness an unexpected turn, sparked not by rivalry, but by friendship, wisdom, and the subtle ways martial arts masters support one another when pride threatens to destroy what truly matters. It was a moment destined to reshape the afternoon, the competition, and the hearts of those who lived it. The stage was set. The crowd was restless. Jim Kelly was reaching his breaking point, and Joe Lewis was about to step out of the shadows and intervene in a way that no one, least of all Jim, saw coming. The competition floor buzzed with an intensity that bordered on overwhelming. Every footstep, every shift of stance, Every breath drawn by the fighters seemed amplified by the thick pressure hanging over the gymnasium. The audience, packed tightly like sardines, contributed to that atmosphere without even realizing it. Their cheers, gasps, and restless movements formed a constant, pulsing backdrop. The entire building felt alive, vibrating with anticipation. Jim Kelly stood near the edge of the mat, watching his students with a look that blended fierce determination and growing dread. His arms remained crossed, not out of comfort, but as if he were physically holding himself together. He felt every mistake, every hesitation, every fall as though he were the one receiving the blows. His jaw was set so tightly that the muscles twitched periodically, betraying the pressure mounting inside him. He had trained his students for years, teaching them not just how to fight, but how to discipline their minds, how to face fear, how to stand firm when everything around them seemed uncertain. Yet now, as he watched them struggle, he couldn't stop the creeping feeling that he had somehow failed them. The scoreboard showed no mercy. Points were slipping away, and the dream of victory was losing its grip. Tommy Nakamura's fall hit Jim the hardest. Tommy wasn't just talented. He was dedicated, loyal, and hardworking, one of the young fighters Jim believed had championship potential. When Tommy hit the mat after a perfectly executed leg sweep from his opponent, the sound echoed like a hammer strike inside Jim's skull. The crowd's gasp only drove the spike deeper. Tommy got up, shaking off the fall with admirable resilience, but Jim could see the uncertainty in the boy's stance. The slight tremble in Tommy's legs, the unfocused look in his eyes, it all painted a picture Jim dreaded. He whispered under his breath, almost like a prayer, "Come on, Tommy, remember your training. Stay calm, stay sharp." But it was too late. Tommy was rattled, and rattled fighters were vulnerable. The next exchange sealed his fate. His opponent landed a clean strike straight to the midsection, folding Tommy's confidence in half. The crowd erupted, not cruelly, but enthusiastically, hungry for moments of impact. But to Jim it felt like the walls were closing in. The score shifted to 4-3, pushing his team deeper into trouble. The stakes weren't just professional, they were personal. Jim remembered the wager with Russell Wong, a challenge toss over drinks months earlier, when both men were loose, laughing, and competitive. It had seemed harmless then. The losing instructor would shut down their advanced program for 6 months. At the time, Jim believed wholeheartedly in his students. Now, with each passing second, that bet felt like a noose tightening around his legacy. Lucy Wong stepped onto the mat next. She was a beacon of discipline, a quiet storm of precision and control. No one practiced harder, pushed further, or demanded more of herself than Lucy. If any fighter could shift the momentum back in their favor, it was her. Jim leaned forward unconsciously, hands gripping the railing, as if he could influence the outcome through sheer willpower. Yet the match was over almost before it began. One miscalculation, one opening, one swift counterattack from her opponent, and Lucy fell. The gym roared again, but this time the sound was muted in Jim's ears. The scoreboard flashed, 5-4. Another step toward defeat. His heart dropped. The pressure he'd been holding inside him for the last hour surged upward, threatening to erupt. His breaths grew shallow. He could feel the eyes of parents, supporters, reporters, and students on him. They might not know the specifics of the wager, but they knew something was wrong. Even the reporters, notebooks poised, paused long enough to glance at Jim, sensing the storm in his posture. Then came the final match. Ray Jolly's Ray J was up next. Young, energetic, undeniably talented, but dangerously prone to showing off. His skills were remarkable, but his discipline wavered whenever he felt the spotlight. And here, in front of the largest audience of his life, the spotlight was blinding. As Ray J walked toward the mat, Jim called out sharply, "Ray J." The young fighter froze. The tone wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of everything Jim felt. Fear, frustration, desperation. Jim stepped closer, lowering his voice but sharpening his warning. "Don't showboat. Don't try to impress anyone. Stick to the fundamentals. Do you understand me?" Ray J nodded, but Jim knew he had pushed too hard. The boy's confidence visibly wilted. His shoulders dipped, his breathing hitched, and instead of stepping onto the mat like a warrior, he stepped forward like someone walking into a storm unprepared. Jim immediately regretted it, but there was no time to fix it. Ray J took his stance. The match began, and disaster struck almost instantly. A high kick, too flashy, too ambitious, gave his opponent the perfect opening. Within seconds, Ray J was swept to the ground. The cheers from the opposing side swelled like a tidal wave. The score hit 6-4. Jim's stomach twisted. He shouted again, "Focus! Ray J! Fundamentals!" But his voice only distracted the young fighter further. Another point, 7-4. At that moment, Jim felt something inside him snap. His frustration, guilt, and pressure all collided, building into a breaking point that had nothing to do with the match anymore. He was on the verge of yelling, not to teach, not to motivate, but out of pure emotional exhaustion. And that was when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Joe Louis had stepped forward, not as a spectator, not as a legend, not even as a competitor, but as a friend. The moment Joe Louis placed his hand on Jim Kelly's shoulder, the atmosphere shifted in a subtle but unmistakable way. It wasn't forceful, but it carried enough weight to interrupt the emotional avalanche building inside Jim. His breath hitched, the anger paused mid-rise, and he turned his head just enough to see Joe standing there, calm, collected, and wearing that faint, almost knowing smile he was famous for. Joe Louis had a presence that didn't need loudness or theatrics. It radiated naturally, like a quiet confidence that filled whatever space he stepped into. Even standing in the shadows of the competition area just moments ago, he had always seemed larger than life. Now, standing beside Jim, he felt like an anchor in the middle of a storm. "Jim," Joe said, his voice low but steady. Jim's first instinct wasn't gratitude, it was disbelief. Of all times for Joe Louis to step forward, why now? Why in the middle of a disastrous match, with everything on the line, when Jim was wrestling not just with failure, but with the weight of his own frustration? He opened his mouth to speak, but Joe was already stepping forward, addressing not only Jim but the entire gymnasium. "How about you and I have a go right here?" he said, his voice rising just loud enough to echo across the competition floor. "Right now, friendly match. Just for fun." The entire gym froze. It was as if someone had pressed a pause button that affected every spectator, every fighter, every judge. Even Ray J, in the middle of his match, turned his head in confusion. A hush swept across the bleachers, disbelief crackling through the air like electricity. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Stories like this remind us how unpredictable life can be, and how every event, ordinary or extraordinary, can hide deeper truths. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to support the channel by liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing. Your engagement helps us continue exploring more powerful stories, more mysteries, and more untold facts from around the world. See you in the next video.